Are you using speaking to grow your business? Are you having big paydays like $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, or even more? If not, then this episode is for you. I want to talk today about how to speak, sell, and scale, and use speaking as a main revenue driver in your business. Welcome to the Expert in You podcast, the show where we have real conversations with established founders, firm owners, and B2B experts selling their expertise as services. We talk about what's happening now inside experienced businesses where positioning, influence, and growth directly affect opportunities and contracts. I'm Carden. Let's get into it. Now, you may already be out there speaking. You may be on podcasts. You may have your own show. You may be running live streams or webinars or speaking on stages. But is what you're doing turning into big paydays? And is it turning into big paydays consistently and predictably? Well, I want you to know that this can be engineered. Now, I'm not going to make any revenue claims just because you're watching this today or listening, if you're listening to the podcast, but I am going to share with you how you can close gaps that keep speaking from being such a large revenue driver in your business that gives you consistent and predictable growth. You know, I have been speaking for, over 40 years, really since I was a kid, but for almost 40 years, I've been speaking for business. And I built and sold 5 previous businesses, and speaking was the main driver to get me out there, get me visible, let people know who I am, what I'm all about, what my business was. And it built my brand and it built awareness. But until about 15 years ago, I did not realize how speaking could be leveraged to really grow my business in a way that I only dreamed about. And that's what I want to share with you today. So for a lot of years, it was building my brand, it was building awareness, but it was very much like hope marketing. I would get out there and I would speak and I would educate people, and then I would tell them what my business was. But the problem with that is because of the strategy, or I should say lack of strategy, to actually convert business, it was very much like hope and pray that people would do business with me. But about 15 years ago, this all changed when I put together a small room of business owners. There were maybe 10 or 12 people in the room. It wasn't very many. And I had my first $60,000 day. And that's when I realized, oh my gosh, this is a game changer. When you engineer the right approach to use your speaking to grow, you have big opportunities. Now, through the years, I see a lot of people out there trying to build a speaking business, and that's not what I'm talking about here. I personally have no desire to go out and speak for a $10,000 fee. If I can run my own virtual room and have a $150,000 day, that's just me. And now when I speak, I actually think about what is it I want to make from the room or the stage or whatever it is I'm doing. I think about what would make it worth it for me to go and speak. And that's how I make decisions now. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is, are you thinking this way in your business when you get asked to speak? Are you thinking strategically and thinking about how will I be able to convert this and how will I be able to convert it into the money that I want? So there are a lot of breakdowns when people are speaking to grow their business. And I want to go through these because I really want to help you be able to use speaking to sell your services and scale your business. And it can be a predictable rinse and repeat system for you. And there are so many ways to do this in the marketplace today. I have a Speak, Sell, and Scale Facebook community, and I put up a poll a week or so ago, and I asked, what do people most want to get from speaking in 2026? And I had several answers, and people voted on what they most wanted. And here were the 2 winners, and they actually tied. The first was people said they wanted to get more money per client for the rooms that they were already in. And the second thing that people said is they want to know how to use speaking to create $50,000 to $100,000 plus paydays. Now, believe it or not, both of these things are actually very aligned and they work together. So I'm going to talk about both of these. Now, I'm not making revenue claims because you are listening to this show. But what I am going to do is show you what I do in my business that has worked so well and what I actually teach my clients. And hopefully you will start thinking differently about how you're using speaking in your business going forward, because it can make your 2026 a $1 million or even better year if you use it strategically. So the first thing to think about is anytime you are going to speak, whether that's your own room, being on a podcast, interviewing someone on a podcast, is think about what would your time be worth to make that engagement worth it. One of the things that I think about is, okay, what's the minimum that I want to make to go and speak? And this would vary if I was going to have to travel or stay overnight. That would be a different amount of money that I would want to make. But let's just say a local speaking event. My minimum that I look for a local speaking event would be about $45,000. That would be my minimum. Now, here's the thing. No one's ever paid me $45,000 or $100,000 or $150,000 to be on their stage to speak. And if that were the case, well, that would be different. But I use speaking as a way to grow my business. And so I always prefer to speak where I have the opportunity to sell and to convert people into clients and sell my services. And so this is how I strategically think about speaking. So if I don't see the opportunity being with that speaking engagement, okay, if $45,000 is my floor and I don't see that opportunity, then it would be a hard no for me. One of the things that I no longer do are speak on summits. Virtual summits. I don't do them any longer. And the reason for that is because I have found that for the people that I bring in as clients, that's not the right speaking avenue for me. Sure, it gets exposure and sure people see me and sure I can promote it on social media and it's a great ego play, but I have not found it to be profitable in a way that it's worth it for me to do that. So you have to really decide what are the best ways for you to speak to actually make the money that you want. And so some rooms will be worth it and some will not. And what I have found, for example, with summits is the people that attend summits are typically low value buyers. And summits are designed to sell low value services. So for me, that's not a great play, and I already know that. However, being a guest on a podcast strategically, running my own show, running virtual rooms, even getting into small rooms where I am the speaker, if it is the right aligned audience, those are all great ways to use speaking to grow my business. And they can be for you too. So the first thing you want to do is figure out the amount of money that you want to make for speaking. Like, what is that floor for you? And when you can have $50,000 and $100,000 paydays, and some people are having $1 million paydays, you will start thinking very differently about speaker fees or being paid a little bit of money to show up and speak. So I want to talk about engineering the right path, the right model to utilize speaking. So the first thing is establish your floor. What is that floor going to be for you? What's that minimum amount of money that is going to make it worth your time? And of course, the amount of time that you're going to spend. So if you have travel, again, I said if you have to stay overnight, that's going to take days out of your schedule, days away from your business, right? So all of these things need to be considered. If I was traveling, I would look for that speaking engagement to produce at least $100,000 to make it worth my time. Again, if I can fire up a virtual room and in 2 hours or 2.5 hours or even 3 hours without even having to leave my office, I can close $150,000 in sales. Does it make sense for me to take 2 or 3 days out of my business to go and speak on a stage? So think about the approach that you're going to use and then establish the floor. That's the first thing. The second thing that you want to think about is conversion. So many people go into speaking as, I want to educate, I want to teach people what I know, I want to make an impact, I want to build my brand, and they're not thinking about conversion. And conversion is, number one, how you're going to make the revenue, right? But your entire speaking presentation and even the rooms that you're in and the people you're in front of, conversion is the end result that you want, right? And so you have to align everything with the conversion. And so many people, again, don't do this. So what is it you actually are going to sell? And then your speaking presentation needs to lead people into making a decision to buy from you when they're ready. So your speaking becomes the authority builder, the trust builder, but you are leading people into making a decision to want to work with you. This is a very different approach from what most people are doing in their speaking opportunities. So every speaking opportunity now gets looked at as a conversion opportunity. Think about that. It's not a speaking opportunity, it's a conversion opportunity. And so there are a lot of things that have to go into being able to convert the room or being able to convert people into clients. Now, the last few speaking engagements I did, one was live where I went and spoke to a small room, and that turned into over $45,000 in business. The last virtual room I did was over $50,000 in new business. And those were actually very small numbers compared to things that I've done in the past. But again, they still hit my floor. They still hit my floor. So you start looking at every opportunity as a strategic play, a move towards conversion. If I get asked to be on a podcast, for example, or be a guest on a podcast, I look at that podcast strategically. Who's the audience? Who's interviewing me? What is the opportunity for that to get in front of more people, for promotion, to get more eyes on me, but are they the right people? See, it's not enough just to get eyes, right? If they're not people that would ever be buyers, if they're not people that have any need for what it is you do. And so everything that I do in my business is thought through strategically, everything. And a lot of people don't run their business this way. If you want to get bigger clients for the rooms that you're in, you need a better sales process. You need probably a better offer. Maybe your offers are not leading people into something bigger. So that's a gap that has to be closed. So if your revenue model and your revenue offers are not compelling, they are not something that people want or need, you can't turn those into bigger engagements. So somewhere there's a disconnect. Either there's a disconnect with the audience that you're in front of, or there's a disconnect with the offer that you're in front of, or there's a disconnect with the speaking leading to conversion. Is this making sense? So again, you have to look at everything strategically. Now, a lot of people say, well, a podcast is better, and speaking on stages is better, and running virtual events is better, running virtual rooms is better. Here's the thing, all of those strategies work to get clients and convert people into business when you have the right approach. They all work. Every one of them will work, but you have to have the strategy and the approach behind them. And then you get one working. One of the things I love about podcast, for example, is I can guest on podcast or use my podcast and I can go get clients like anytime I want. I don't have to wait to run a virtual room. I don't have to wait to go speak on a stage. I know how to leverage a podcast, whether I'm a guest or whether I am the host. I know how to leverage a podcast to get clients whenever I want. But I also love the opportunity of a virtual room. And I love small rooms because to me, you can build a great connection with people. They are a lot more personable, and you have a better opportunity to see if the people in the room are aligned with what it is you do. And then again, you strategically align everything that you're doing so that you get conversion. I want to keep saying that word, conversion, because it is the missing piece. It's the gap for most people. They don't think about speaking as conversion strategy. And it is, number one, very predictable and consistent when you have this dialed in. But the other thing that I love about it is when you know how to actually convert a room or speak to a room where you can get business from that room, you've got the right people there, you've got the right presentation, you've got the right offer, you will have conversions. When you know how to do that, you will never have to worry in your business about making revenue or getting clients or selling your services. It is literally one of the most powerful strategies and skill sets you can learn. And here's the thing, it's not even necessarily about being a great speaker. Now, if you're on a stage and they're going to pay you $50,000 to speak, they're going to expect that you're either part of us, you're either probably somewhat a celebrity, or you are quite the entertaining speaker, or you're a phenomenal speaker. And the thing about using speaking as a revenue driver in your business to close clients and sell your services is you don't really have to be a phenomenal speaker. You have to be able to connect. You have to be able to present in a way that leads people into making a decision to buy from you. And you have to be able to convert those conversations or those connections that you make into buyers. And that's really all it is. And the great thing about it is when you get these strategies dialed in, you always have ways, always, to go and get clients and sell your services. You can fire up a virtual room. You can fire up a webinar. I literally could go live in the next 30 minutes and then share that live with people that could be my ideal clients. So when you know how to do this effectively and you have all the right pieces in place, it is such a game changer. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about, though, is how do you turn it into consistency and predictability? And here is my best advice to you. What are you doing right now in speaking, however you're speaking, whether that's a podcast, virtual rooms, whatever it is you're doing? What are you doing right now that you would love to work better? How would you like it to work better? That's what you need to focus on. How can I get what I'm doing right now to work better? Now, this is one of the things that I do with people. I look at what they're doing, I identify the issue, and we fix it. And then things can happen often very fast because you're already doing the work. You're already doing the thing. You just might have somewhere some gaps that have to be closed that will get you better results for what you are doing. Now, I will tell you, I invested in a mentor, it's been a few years ago now, because there were a couple of things I was doing with virtual rooms and with my podcast that were not creating the results I wanted. And this particular mentor, I believed, had the answer. And I paid him over $30,000 just to close two little gaps with what I was doing. And it was well worth it. It has made me hundreds of thousands of dollars just closing those two little gaps. And the cool thing is, when I closed them for me, I also got to close the same gaps for my clients as well. And it taught me some new skills. So it was very worth the investment. And you may have some gaps. And if you do, and you want some help identifying those gaps and closing those gaps, then by all means, book a call with me at acarden.com. We can often do this in a day. Believe it or not, we could get what you're doing working better in a day often. So if that's you and you need some help with that, you can book a call with me at acarden.com. But here's how you make what you're doing consistent and predictable. Once you get it working, now it's rinse and repeat. So it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether you're speaking on stages, you're creating your own room, you're doing your own virtual rooms, you're running summits, you're doing a podcast, you're guesting. Here's the thing, turn it into a system so that you get predictability and consistency in your revenue in your business. How much money would you like to make a month? How many times do you need to do that particular thing a month to make that kind of revenue? See, growing and scaling a business is really all about the strategy and the numbers. And then, of course, taking the actions and doing the work. But most people, again, they're not thinking about speaking for conversion. They're speaking for impact. They're speaking for awareness. They're speaking for visibility. They're speaking for little bitty fees, but they're not speaking for big paydays and conversion. And when you start thinking that way, you will start taking different actions and doing things differently. That will start driving your revenue in your business. And then once you get that working, turn it into a system that is consistent and predictable. If you can run a virtual room and you can have a $50,000 day, how many times a month would you run a virtual room to have a $50,000 day? If you could have a $100,000 day every time you run a virtual room, how many times a month would you want to run a virtual room? So whatever you're doing, if you could guest on a podcast and you could close a $40,000 or $50,000 client, how many times do you want to guest on a podcast? And then what's the strategy behind that? Who do you need to be guesting on podcast with, right? So it doesn't matter what you're doing. It does not matter the speaking that you're doing, as long as it's the right play for your business and the clients that you're going after. You can turn it into a predictable and consistent revenue system with big paydays. Now, the other side of this is when we talk about conversion, you have to have a great sales process to convert people. And this even comes down to how you take payments, how you structure payments. You can't have big paydays if you're taking $1,000 from somebody, right? But if you're getting paid in full or you're getting big upfront fees when they come into your world and they start working with you, all of those things become bigger paydays and revenue drivers. And so again, it's all about the math. It's all about breaking down the numbers. I help people strategically map this out and map out the plan so that they can start making the money they want to make from what they are already doing. So hope you found this valuable. Are you thinking strategically about speaking? Are you thinking about conversion from speaking? What's your floor? What's the least amount that you want to make every time you take time to speak? And then turn those things into a system. And remember, it's all around the numbers. It's all about the numbers. How many stages do you need to be on? How many virtual rooms do you need to run? How many guest podcast spots do you need? How many people do you need to interview in your podcast? How many live streams do you need to do? How many webinars do you need to do? It's all about the numbers. It's getting one thing working, and then you start systematizing that. And you can ramp it up, you can dial it back. You get too many clients, you can dial it back. You need more clients or want more clients, you can ramp it up, right? It's all about the numbers. But think conversion first, and then speaking becomes the way that you are converting clients and selling your services. So speak, sell, and scale. It is one of the fastest and best paths to growing your business, especially if you're a professional entrepreneur. Now, also, I want to invite you into my Facebook community, Speak, Sell, and Scale. If all of this has interested you and you're ready to go all in, go jump into that community and join us in there for strategic, high-level thinking and sharing and training and all the things that go into a great community. So join us in that, and I'll put the link in the show notes. We'll see you there. Bye-bye. Have an amazing day.
The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. Although I share strategies, ideas, and success stories based on real experiences, results are never guaranteed. Every business is unique, and outcomes depend on individual effort, market conditions, and many other factors. By listening, you agree that I and my guests are not responsible for your results or actions based on the content shared. Thank you for tuning in today. If you're as excited as I am about scaling up your influence, business, and bank account, then I have just the thing for you. But first, make sure you subscribe to the show. Second, make sure you share it with someone you care about, because sharing is caring. And third, head on over to join me in my next free virtual exclusive workshop, where we'll explore proven strategies to boost your business and maximize your potential. Look, it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're looking to take your business to the next level, my workshops are designed for you. So head on over to expertinyouworkshop.com to reserve your spot and get ready to transform your expertise into extraordinary success. I'm looking forward to seeing you there and helping you achieve incredible growth. Until next time, make sure you're always seeking the expert in you, and God bless. Have an amazing day.